it's quite interesting to write. You know, when you're angry and you're about to kill someone, and you actually write it down and what's that? That's rubbish. Or it's brilliant. So it's really good to sort of write, condense the visual ideas and stuff. So he would write these chapters, and then. But then we did come across so we had to get money from the government. So we had to get the government to approve.
It might as well be Market Street.
Alright, what was it like before?
And it was Jeremy Hunt.
It was arty, but
I don't know why he's
in a kind of exclusive way that kind of blocked some people out, which I didn't like about it at the time.
He came, Boris Johnson came, the Prime Minister.
So you mean there was more creative people around?
There was more creative, but it's kind of a bit kind of looking down the nose at a lot of people. So a lot of people are blocked out by it, but now it's just commercial.
Right, is that what you think of it now, yeah? Okay. And then, what's your favourite sort of place to go to around here?
Jeremy Hunt said, I don't understand. He said, where's the...
car parks and Macari's.
Where's the resolution?
To me, this is just another part of Manchester City Centre.
Right. Don't you think it's any different from like King Street? And
yeah, obviously it's different.
It's still with Walkers, we're going to have
less commercial than that side of town.
Every wedding we have with military bands. You know, in the end, you can see we touched on Churchill.
Nice one. What do you do again?
MC, DJ, music,
draw. And we marked.
Do you put on any shows in the Northern Quarter?
The Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Wherever it happens these days. I mean, like places you used to go, look across the road, like place where.
Those are important things, but anyway, we had to move on.
Been there 10 years ago, been there 10 years ago, but they don't have that type of vibe no more.
So in the end of all these chapters, we ended up with 3 chapters. We ended up with
Mint Lounge, which obviously used to be Planet K,
which is history of the country. And also, you know, when we go to the Olympic Stadium, it's built right on where all the old factories are, so the ground in there is poison.
So not much hip hop stuff around here?
You can't actually dig down.
Right, okay. Alright, what about reggae? Do you play any reggae around here?
You can't actually go through the surface.
Commercial reggae if it is around here.
Right, okay.
So it felt right, you know, to mark the energy, creativity. Both good and bad in the Industrial Revolution, because it produced amazing things, but also it killed a lot of people in time. So, but it is us, it is part of our history now, actually. So we decided that it is about King de Brunel, and the Industrial Revolution was an important way to celebrate ingenuity, engineering, and stuff that pushed us on. Then we went into the middle and told all the things that
to be able to say what you want and where you want without having to think that it's going to be come back on you, that you're going to be done for it.
No, so you're telling stories of children like this. So that was for the youth, and then the final chapter was really what I was going to be, or there was so many avenues that I've always written. There was in my local church, there was a drama school, so
shows in New York, and then I went, didn't really work. Then I went to Paris and I did Balenciaga and Givenchy, and then it somehow all started.
How you decided to stop your career and then to restart again?
Well, before I was modeling most of the time in Holland and Belgium and a little bit in Germany, and I mean, it was a very different kind of modeling I did back then. I had a great time, but I was mainly doing a lot of, you know, catalogs and things like that, and at one point it was just enough. And and what I'm doing now is very different. I mean, I work on another level, which is very exciting. And
what happens when you're about to jump on a catwalk? Like, are you emotional? Are you strong? What is your thought?
I'm very nervous, often, and I don't know, it depends. Sometimes the music can give you a certain sensation, sometimes just what the designer says to you just before you get out, or I don't know, it can be very different.
Have you ever been scared, like, oh my god, I will never be able to finish this catwalk?
I'm pretty sure.
And when you see yourself in a magazine, what is your thought?
I try and look at the picture. I try not to look at myself, but I try to see what this picture does to me, and if I like that picture, or if it's an interesting picture, I try to look at that and see if that person who used to be me if that's the right character for that story. And if I try not to judge myself, but to look at the whole thing.
Modeling and acting, do you think it's the same thing?
I don't think so. No. I think acting is probably a more difficult job. I think, and as well, models don't use their voice, which you notice now that I'm maybe not so used to using my voice. So it's very different.
Anyway, in a picture, you have to be someone else. You have to be the person that the designer or the photographer asks you to be. So in a way, you are like similar to an actress.
I think for a model, you stay much closer to yourself. You don't have to go very, very deep to find that character. It can be also in an instant in a picture. And if you would play a role like for an hour, a movie that lasts for an hour, you would have to maintain that character for a really long time. So I think that's very different. Yeah, I would love to learn, but no.
And if you have to give an advice to a young girl who wants to start this career, what would you say?
First of all, I think it's very important to stay, to feel like happy and fulfilled what you do. So you have to eat. You have to take care of your body, because it's like with traveling, it can be quite intense and take a toll on your health. So you have to take care of that very carefully, and you have to listen to yourself always. If you think that, because maybe other people will tell you what to do, but you always have to ask yourself, is this what I really want? And if you don't want that, then you shouldn't do it. And if you do want it, you should, but you should always follow your heart.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you in a few moments on the catwalk.
Yes.
And in fashion, actually it works not simply as somebody playing a passive role to the artist's, inspiration. I think Carl is somebody who's inspired by, it can be a piece of architecture, it can be the corner of an extraordinary Bruno Paul piece of furniture, it can be a length of fabric, it can be a sculpture, it can be the head of a 17th century woman. I mean, there's so much that Carl finds inspiring that you can't really say that anybody or any one thing is a muse. He finds his cat inspiring, but that is only one thing out of many, many things. He finds poetry, things that he's read. There's so much that Carl finds, that flame, that trigger of inspiration.
So how would you describe this relationship then?
Oh, my relationship with Carl, I would say he tolerates me. I think he challenges me. I think he senses in everybody with this, his genius is, so much of it is a sort of telepathy. exactly. So much of it is almost like a spiritual sense of what has happened and what will happen next. I mean, it's uncanny and it's an extraordinary gift. But he senses in people often what their potential might be. And the challenge for me is to live up to the potential that Carl sees in me, which as yet I have not done. But I am trying.
Amanda, you're an artist and a photographer yourself.
You're very generous, I wouldn't say so, but I try.
And where do you find your inspiration then?
My inspiration, what moves me, a lot of what moves me actually is the natural world on one level. And really an artistic gesture with a small a and a small g is really a sense of wonder at being part of that world. So for me, a lot of my painting is really an expression of wonder of being part of it, and also probably a sense of not wanting to lose it, if I'm being really honest. On the other sense, working on my writing or creating an idea for a film and making great big collages, I don't know where that inspiration comes from, and that is also quite mysterious and very exciting.
I've seen your beautiful book, your photography book on India.
That's very kind. That's because of Carl, who did absolutely the whole. It was his concept, the idea of it as a sort of mogul jewel box, but also, you know, the layout with Gerhard Steidl, the paper, the printing. You know, they transformed what were, I mean, snapshots, actually, you know, into the most beautiful thing. But I would love to do more. And in fact I have got some photographic projects coming up, so that's good. I haven't got my camera here, damn.
When I saw the book, I thought that more than a regular trip, it was a very interior trip, because the images that I see are very, very emotional.
That, I mean, I think somebody once said to me, you know, the trouble with you, Amanda, you're too emotional. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, especially if you can somehow freight those emotions towards being able to explain something. Not that you can explain India, but I was very affected there. I was very affected, but it was actually, which I wrote at the back, you can't possibly take one image which sums up this country, and you can't write in a sentence an explanation, but actually in the many images there is an attempt to try and express the extraordinary spirituality, the great, you know, the profound grace of that country under this sky like pale blue silk. It was the most transformative experience for me. And the reason why the book happened is because it was Carl who actually let me off a Fendi appointment to go to India for 3 weeks, which made it all worthwhile. So to say thank you, I made him an album, and from that album, that gave him the idea to make the book.
That's amazing. Before you were talking about your inspiration from natural elements, if you were one of those, which one would you be?
Natural air. I'm afraid I'm a Gemini.
Thank you so much for your time, Amanda.
Oh, well.
Every collection is a different obsession. So I had some inspirations from art, some art waves, from women, from my daughter, from just never closing my eyes.
What happened when you're at home with your mom? Like, how do you share your thoughts and creative experiences?
Well, I always have my mitra. We have kind of the same taste, so this is a good thing, but I don't know, it's like, she's like the person I'm more afraid of, her judgment really is, I'm so afraid of that. So this is why she's the first one who actually sees my collection. Every time I install like a little presentation for her in my office, like a little preview, because it's really difficult to shock her because she's seeing so much and she sees so much. So when I shock her, it means I got it.
And in terms of fashion, like, which are the pieces that cannot miss in your wardrobe?
Well, now I'm more in a uniform kind of spirit. So I'm back to school, back to my non-school. So I would say now, like, just 3 colors, like this, the blue, the black, and the white, all together.
But your jewelry are very colorful though.
I know, this is why I express myself. I color myself with my jewelry, not with my dress.
And which is like the next step that you want to take now?
Maybe start to do black and white jewelry and start to put color on my clothes. I don't know. Like, I have so many dreams. I have so many things I want to do. I'm still so young that I just have no rush.
And do you think your daughter will take like all the creative part of your family?
She loves jewelry, but I think she's more of an actress. So I told her, you have to become an actress who loves jewelry. That's like the best. So you will become like my testimonial.
And fashion as well, otherwise I think grandmother would not be very happy.
No, she'll be happy. She's great as an actress, I can already see it.
Thank you so much. I think you have to go and someone is looking for you. Thank you.
Bye.
And I wondered, I mean, clearly you were a very striking looking teenager, but was fashion and the whole sort of stuff around it of interest to you as a little girl, or were you a tomboy?
I was an absolute tomboy. I mean, I did not have any style at all. I learned fashion by being in fashion.
Being the one who looks different at school is quite a hard thing, was it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm so happy ultimately about what's sort of happened in my life, because where I grew up was the era of Baywatch and Pamela Anderson, you know, so it's like you've got to be a striking, buxom, peroxide blonde, and I was absolutely none of that. I mean, I was very skinny, some ratty, mousy hair, very pale. Fashion sort of found me in a way. It was honestly the luckiest moment of my life.
You must have been aware of Marks and Spencer's from an early age. I mean, what does it represent?
It's so identified with this country. I mean, I think there's always something that you can go in and find at Marks and Spencer's, and also the food. Obviously, I mean, that was the creature comfort when I moved away from England. Like, oh my God, they had one in Paris, and that was sort of my saving grace during Paris Fashion Week, was to go and get your Marks and Spencer's fruit cup. That's what expats like myself always sort of say, what do you miss about England? There's always sort of like, well, I miss the tea, I miss chocolate digestive biscuits, and I miss Marks and Spencer's.
Of being racist?
No, I'm saying the act of not choosing models of color is racist. So I'm not saying, we're not calling them racist, we're saying the act is racist. And I'm also saying they may not intentionally know, but they do choose, they hire casting directors, they hire stylists, and they are now the ones that choose the models, not so much the designer anymore. So it's not directly the designer, but it does affect their house and their brand.
So what you're saying is that over 80%